Wait, so you're with the Judean People's Front? What? You hate them? But you just said that was you. Uh-huh. The People's Front of Judea. That's what I just said. What did I say? What did I say? But that's the same. Ah, I gotta go.
The election is soon upon us. For whom will you vote?
Your party unemployed worker is the KPD, and your party choice is number 3.
Choose party number 1, SPD, against the Bürgerblock and the swastika.
For unity, progress, and national community, choose number 6, the German State Party. Vote for the leaders of the German Center Party, the men of action, truth, and responsibility. Vote number 4.
Worker of head and hand, choose number 9, National Socialists.
I'm Indy Neidell.
I'm Spartacus Olsson.
This is The Rise of Hitler. Welcome to the Weimar Wire. Today we'll cover some of August's awesome, awful, and audacious activities, but in this special edition, we will focus mostly on what the different political parties are doing in the run-up to the September 14th elections.
But before we do that, here's a quick recap of July. Last month saw turmoil in Germany's fragile democracy.
Prussia and Baden tightened restrictions on Nazi activities, banning civil servants from party membership, though the Nazis pushed back with protests and propaganda.
A controversial vote to grant amnesty to political murderers failed, highlighting divisions in the Reichstag and growing tensions across the political spectrum.
Meanwhile, Adolf Hitler purged dissent within the Nazi Party, leading to the departure of Otto Strasser and the formation of his breakaway Black Front.
And in a stunning move, Brüning's government bypassed parliament to impose financial reforms, culminating in the dissolution of the Reichstag by presidential decree, setting the stage for new elections.
Okay, so now we know what happened last month. Here's the question. Who will you vote for?
I have no clue, but maybe I'll have a better idea once we finish today.
Yeah.
Before we get to the whole voting question, though, let's quickly cover the important headlines.
American President Herbert Hoover announces Douglas MacArthur as new Army Chief of Staff.
Unemployment in Britain exceeds 2 million.
On the 11th, Germany celebrates Constitution Day, marking the 11th anniversary of the Weimar Republic.
Franz Pfeffer von Salomon steps down as Supreme SA leader, and Hitler takes over the position. The SA is a Nazi paramilitary organization.
Britain is condemned in a League of Nations report for failing to protect Jews during the Arab revolts last year.
And now, where's Hitler? What's Adolf up to this month? Well, this month, campaigning is his priority, and he gives an impressive number of speeches throughout Germany. Here's an overview of just the major cities he visits.
On the 2nd, he speaks in Frankfurt in front of 17,000 people. The Nazis report 25,000, about a turning point in the life of the German people. On the 5th, it's Würzburg, speaking to 5,000 or 6,000 according to the Nazis, urging listeners to partake in reflection on bloodline heritage and national consciousness.
On the 10th, he's in Kiel, addressing some 2,500 or 5,000 according to the Nazis, rejoicing that this time it will be a tough election campaign for our political opponents. Then on to Munich on the 12th, where he announces it cannot go on like this in front of 4,000 plus people. Then Essen, the 15th, where he laments the supposed 1918 stab in the back to 11,000 people.
On the 18th, Hitler is in Cologne, again wailing about the events of 1918 with 10,000 plus watching, the Nazis say 20. It's then Koblenz on the 21st, where Hitler tells 10,000 people to decide their own fate. The Nazis report 12,000.
On the 29th, Hitler goes full circle and returns to Munich, addressing 4,000 plus people and once more grieving over 1918.
Okay, let's forget 1918 for now. What is the current situation on the streets? What is the environment in which German citizens will soon cast their votes?
Well, the far left and right have seemingly decided to go all out. Violence between the Nazis and the communists is nothing new on the streets of Weimar. As our listeners will know, it has been a staple of Weimar life.
Yeah, but this month, tensions seem to intensify, presumably because of the upcoming election. A perfect example of this is what happens in Nuremberg on the 14th. That evening, Hermann Remmerle, one of the leading communists in Germany and a communist MP, holds a speech titled fascism or communism at the Hercules Velodrome.
He wants to explain why communism, and not fascism, is the way forward for Germany and the world. Not only communists attend this speech. Many people who do not consider voting for the communists or the Nazis hope to learn something about their differences, according to the communists.
The largest assembly hall in Nuremberg was already packed by 8 p.m. Thousands had to remain outside on the street. Some Nazi Party members are also there, but not out of interest. See, they explain,
Communists had called on National Socialists via posters to attend. The National Socialists followed the call.
what the Nazis failed to mention here is that they are not singled out. The communists invited all political parties.
Yeah, but quite a few Nazis are present for the proceedings, including 3 local leaders. For a while, it goes smoothly. What happens next, who starts it, and why is disputed. The communists claim,
When Comrade Remele had been speaking for about 2 hours, condemning the anti-grassroots politics of the National Socialists, they escalated their provocations. According to the Nazis present, though, Remele does more than just criticize Nazi policy.
Remele gave a provocative speech and called the National Socialist worker murderers. Other papers, like the Deutsche Reichszeitung, give other reasons as the catalyst for what happens next.
Remele accused the National Socialist leaders of funneling excessive salaries into their own pockets. The only thing that is more or less agreed upon is that various objects are hurled from one group at the other. Deutsche Reichszeitung says,
From the podium, beer glasses are said to have been thrown first at the National Socialist leaders. However, the communists report,
Suddenly, beer glasses and beer mugs were hurled from the ranks of the Nazis. So we have a blame game on our hands. But whatever the case, whoever cast the first stone, the first glass, the Hercules Velodrome erupts.
that was the prelude to a general brawl, to a discussion with Bavarian mugs and beer glasses, the likes of which Nuremberg has rarely seen. Communists and National Socialists fought each other with the utmost ferocity.
If they're saying rarely ever seen, then you know it's serious. This is Nuremberg, home of some of the infamous street brawls during the short-lived Bavarian Socialist Republic, and home to one of the most popular football clubs in Germany.
Yeah, that's so true. The reports say that as soon as the fists began to fly, most of the thousands of people in the venue flee. But the exits are few and far between, so the crowd shatters the windows to escape within moments.
The police intervened with rubber batons, supported by the fire brigade, which separated the fighters with powerful streams of water.
After about 10 minutes or so, they clear the velodrome. You'd think that after being drenched by high-powered water jets and beaten by police officers, they'd stop the fight. But you're wrong. The brawl continues outside, with some even using fence posts as improvised weapons.
When all is said and done, the Hercules Velodrome is wrecked. 70 people are injured, 19 seriously, and 2 or 3 with life-threatening injuries. Those numbers don't really tell the story, though. Many people with minor injuries ran away to avoid police custody. Among the injured I mentioned, though, are those 3 Nazi leaders. Here's what the Nazis have to say after the fact.
It has been proven that the communists were intent on mass murder. The police confiscated all kinds of weapons, revolvers, table legs, stabbing knives, and bludgeons. The carefully planned attack by Red Murder aimed at eliminating the National Socialist leaders failed due to the systematic defense by the party comrades present. The communist counter.
The police indiscriminately attacked workers in the street, while the National Socialists were left untouched. The course of the meeting demonstrated that the National Socialist leaders lacked the courage to engage in an ideological and political debate with the Communist Party, while the workers showed they were determined to actively resist the Nazis' provocations.
While this, with 70 casualties, is one of the larger of such confrontations, I want to stress that it is not the only one by far. Smaller such brawls occur all across Germany in big cities like Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich, and smaller cities like Mainz and Solingen.
On many other occasions, many of these fights do lead to deaths, and are not fought with fists and improvised weapons, but with guns.
And people get blipped.
They get bopped.
They get blown down.
They get chilled off. There are even bombings, or attempted ones at least.
On the 21st, Vorwärts, the Social Democrat newspaper, reports that their party headquarters in Hanover almost fell victim to a bomb hidden in a package delivered in the early morning hours. Luckily for them, the timer malfunctions. The police made clear that the explosives could have collapsed the entire building. The Social Democrats believe they know who is responsible.
The perpetrators are being sought among the National Socialists, as threats to blow up the building have repeatedly been made by their ranks in recent times. There is also, though, internal strife, at least sort of, in the case of the Nazis. On the 30th of this month, Otto Strasser and some members of his newly formed Black Front demolish an office of the Nazis in Berlin.
It is no wonder, then, that authorities enact new measures against the offending groups.
Bavaria, the state where the Bloody Hall Brawl takes place, bans all Nazi or Communist Party meetings, marches, and public demonstrations on the 16th.
The authorities there already banned the Völkische Beobachter, the Nazi Party newspaper, from being published for 4 days on the 11th under the new Reich Protection Law, citing incitement against the Republic as the reason.
In Prussia on the 16th, a court sentences Dr. Josef Goebbels, Nazi MP and Hitler's propagandist-in-chief, to a fine of 1,600 marks for insulting the Reich government and a former Prussian minister.
1,600 marks.
That's a lot.
That's almost an average yearly salary. Damn.
Yeah, they mean business. Yeah. And they, the states, are not done. Schaumburg-Lippe joins Baden, Prussia, and Bavaria in banning the whole or parts of the Nazi Party uniform on the 21st. And here is how the Nazis comment.
The SPD government has developed acute states of fear, and out of shock at the triumphant march of Adolf Hitler's Brown Army, something, let's call it human, happened to them. That is to say, something slipped into their pants. We extend our heartfelt thanks to the autocratic leaders of the Social Democratic Party in Schaumburg-Lippe for their vigorous support of our propaganda through the ban on brown shirts.
Okay, just a side note here. It's kind of a poor choice of words to accuse a political opponent of shitting themselves right after calling yourself the Brown Army.
Now you mention it, yeah, sort of.
It's true,
sort
right?
Of, yeah.
Okay, well, added to the Brown Army. Added to the political violence, the states flexing their muscles, strikes in major German companies, the masses of unemployed, and continuously sinking wages are new political developments, presidential decrees, the rejection of said decrees by Parliament, and finally, the dissolution of Parliament.
Certainly not the easiest time to decide who to vote for.
Yeah, and some of the parties do not actually make it any easier.
That brings us to today's special segment, the Weimar Wire Campaign Chronicles. For once, let us not start on the left or right, but in the middle, with Centrum Chancellor Brüning's party, the party that until last month headed the minority coalition, the Bürgerblock, in the Reichstag, and is supported by President Hindenburg.
Centrum, the Center Party, is a conservative party for Catholics. Since the founding of the Republic in 1918, they have been in all 4 governments in various coalitions. Centrum is one of 2 large democratic parties. The other is the Social Democrats. Anyway, let's see what Brüning has to say. Why should people vote for him and his party?
I am convinced that it will succeed, and it must succeed, to implement what the Reichspräsident has proclaimed through the emergency decrees at the recommendation of the Reich government. I am confident that a majority for this will be secured in the next Reichstag.
Essentially, Brüning stays on course, and the party defends his decisions.
Next, the DDP, the German Democratic Party. Like Centrum, it has been in government pretty much since the founding of the state, with a short break in 1919. As the name suggests, they are a democratic party, and on paper, they are left-leaning liberals.
Why is that on paper?
Well, actions speak louder than words, and they do some stuff that suggests otherwise. Like, to improve their chances of success, they throw in their lot with the Jungdeutschen Orden, an organization grown out of the paramilitary organizations founded after the Great War. They are described as clearly anti-Bolshevik and anti-Semitic, but not necessarily entirely opposed to the Constitution. They're kind of, sort of, broadly speaking, democratic.
Okay.
What sets them apart from other very nationalist parties is that they actually encourage friendly relations with France and Britain.
But they're like Nazi light, right? No fat, no sugar, Nazi light.
Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
But this coalition does not sit well with some members of the DDP, specifically the left wing.
These disgruntled members form their own party, the radical German Democratic Party. And the others changed their name to the DSTP, the German State Party, right? And their campaign is basically the same as Centrum's. If you support what the government did, vote for us.
Is there a difference?
Well, I guess, okay, given that with their new partner, they're now more nationalist and anti-Semitic than Centrum, and their economic vision is more geared towards the rich, but really, other than that, nothing much. They are not the only ones forging new alliances in the name of gaining votes.
Here we have three parties: the DVP, the German People's Party, the WP, the Economy Party, and the KVP, the Conservative People's Party. These parties are the moderate right, generally speaking, liberal in character, while varying from indifferent to hostile towards democracy itself. They are also serving the interests of large industrialists.
Across the whole spectrum, we have the German People's Party, the Conservative People's Party, and the German National People's Party. You'd think that they'd be more creative and less confusing when it comes to choosing names.
Want me to make it more confusing?
No.
The Conservative People's Party is a newly formed party of renegades from the German National People's Party, which sits closer in policy to the German People's Party.
Is there a Judean People's Front?
No.
Is there a People's Front of Judea?
What? No. Anyway, there are more. The Bavarian People's Party, the...
Yeah, we get it. There's a lot of parties. Okay. But anyhow, the DVP, the KVP, and the WP now form a new coalition, the Bürgerliche Einheitsfront, or the Burger United Front, or the Burger Alliance. It seems they want to improve their chances by running on a common platform.
Which is?
The undersigned parties have supported Reichspräsident von Hindenburg in the last Reichstag, focusing on financial, social, economic, and state affairs, as well as its consolidation and expansion. They remain committed to these goals and will advocate for them during the election campaign.
So, from what I gather, Centrum?
Yeah.
German State Party and Burger United Front are all sort of the same?
That is kind of true. While there are differences in foreign policy, in budgetary reform and austerity measures, they're all on the same page, more or less.
Are they not aware that changing nothing in their platform in a time of great economic crisis and polarization isn't really a recipe for success?
I guess they are not aware of that. But hey, you are not the only one making that observation. The Nazis appreciate it very much.
So this is the pitiful result of the bourgeois coalition. We suggest publicly posting this election appeal because that will ensure that even the last remnants of the people will turn their backs on those over-eager people's parties in droves.
The Nazis, the National Socialist Workers' Party, under leader Adolf Hitler, has in political terms always been a minor far-right extreme party, and it campaigns on the same platform that it has since 1920, the 25-point program.
At its core, the program espouses extreme right reactionary policies to create a racially pure, patriarchal, inherently class-based society, a return to an imagined greater past for Germany. Furthermore, it blends nationalist, racist, authoritarian, and collectivist ideas. It seeks to overturn the Treaty of Versailles and unite all Germans into a greater Germany with expanded borders. The program is also profoundly anti-Semitic, aiming to exclude Jews from citizenship and public life while imposing restrictive immigration laws.
It also calls for wealth redistribution, military rearmament, press censorship, and more, all under a non-democratic government.
This year, we have seen some Nazi success in elections in Thüringen and Sachsen. Successes the party now wants to reproduce on a national scale.
One way to get there is by denouncing other parties as Jewish. However, while anti-Semitism is something pretty common in Germany just now, they take it to another level, pushing the belief that there is some sort of global Jewish cabal hell-bent on oppressing the German people.
2/3 Israelites. We have always maintained that the German State Party came into being through Jewish financial machinations.
Wait, the German State Party, that's the party now allied with the anti-Semitic Jung Deutsche Orden, correct?
Yep,
Yeah,
that's right.
okay, yeah.
They also invoke the name of German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche in their campaigns. Nietzsche as a warning voice against the Jewish threat. Nietzsche recognized the danger posed by a race entirely foreign and different from our own and issued warnings.
You know, the Nazis have close ties with Nietzsche's sister, Elisabeth Forster Nietzsche.
I did not know that. What does she do for them?
She supplies them with some of his original writings.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. Another part of the Nazi strategy is pointing out the economic plight of the German people and identifying those responsible.
1 million more unemployed than in 1929? The reliefs of Brüning are starting to take effect. This is massaging numbers, though. I mean, of course, the number of unemployed is higher than in 1929. We do have a global recession on our hands, though. But framing it is the key. From January to August, the number has actually decreased from around 3.2 million to roughly 2.7 million.
So you could run a headline that reads, 500,000 fewer unemployed in just 7 months.
Yes, you could.
Could.
The Nazis have a new ally, if you will, the German National People's Party.
Oh, awesome. Another People's Party. Yeah.
This is the last one.
Okay, last one.
We have recently covered the DNVP extensively. It is the establishment far-right party, staunchly anti-democratic and mostly monarchist. But recently it has lost a lot of voters and suffered an internal split.
Those that remain are assembled under media magnate Alfred Hugenberg, and he is currently steering the party on a course further and further to the right towards Hitler. All we need to illustrate this is one sentence.
We are fighting for ascension. We are fighting for a new fatherland. Our goal is the Third Reich. Here's what the Vossische Zeitung has to say about that.
A word was spoken that was more significant than anything the German National Party leader could have said about his stance on Hitler. The term Third Reich.
So far, the only party talking about a Third Reich, a new and reborn non-democratic Germany, were the Nazis. Now, the DNVP has joined them. But what about the mortal enemy of the Nazis and the DNVP, the Communists? On the 24th, the Communists published a new agenda. It is, in some ways, decidedly new for the party. It promises many things, and to keep those promises...
We will declare all obligations arising from the Treaty of Versailles null and void. We will refuse to pay a single penny in interest on imperialist loans, credits, and investments in Germany. We will introduce a 7-hour workday and a 4-day work week. And through a strong economic alliance with the Soviet Union, we will eliminate unemployment. We will raise wages by abolishing corporate profits, the unproductive costs of the capitalist economic system, and reparation payments.
Okay, it's certainly a lot to promise, but I don't see how any of this is new. This sounds very much like the standard communist rhetoric we've encountered since Thälmann took charge in 1925. High wages, fighting the industrialists and entrepreneurs, condemning imperialism, allying with the Soviet Union, and so on.
Yeah, this is true. The new element, though, is the packaging. The program is called Program Declaration for the National and Social Liberation of the German People.
So?
Okay, they also accuse the Democratic parties of high treason and treason against the state.
I still fail to see where you're going with this. Yeah, all capitalists are traitors. How's that new package?
Okay, here's another one. They call the Treaty of Versailles the exploitative peace of Versailles.
But again, I failed to see
Okay, fine. Okay, one more. To those German territories that express the desire for it, we will secure the possibility of unification with Soviet Germany.
Yeah?
Okay. Let's say, if I told you there is a German political party that calls for the national and social liberation of the German people, accuses the democratic parties of treason against said people, wants to nullify Versailles, and declares it an exploitative peace, and last but not least, wants to incorporate all German peoples in Europe into a new German state, who would you think I was talking about?
Oh my God, the Nazis.
The Nazis.
National and social liberation. How did I miss that?
Well, a lot of people didn't miss that. Here is what the Social Democrats have to say.
Hitler and Goebbels will rub their eyes when reading this declaration. They are defeated and outdone.
And the Nazis see it too.
Communism neither recognized nor recognizes a German people, only class comrades and class enemies. This anti-national ideology forms the foundation of Marxism as a whole, and the KPD has emphasized for years that it is merely a section of the Communist International, and thus not a part of the German nation.
So, essentially, the communists have observed the successes the Nazis have recently had and have now adapted their rhetoric accordingly in the hopes of gaining more voters. However, I want to stress that this is just a similarity in rhetoric. On an ideological basis, many remaining elements in either party make them complete opposites, like their views about, I don't know, the Soviet Union, their thoughts about Jews, right?
Only one party to go, the Social Democrats. The SPD, together with Centrum, is one of the two large, fully democratic parties, as Indy said. They occupy the center-left. It was an SPD politician, Philipp Scheidemann, who proclaimed the Republic on November 8, 1918. Together with Centrum and the DDP, they formed the Weimar Coalition in the early years of the new German state, ensuring its survival.
They are the largest party in Germany and have also participated in many governments, although not as continually as Centrum or DDP. But now, under orders from President Hindenburg, the SPD is to be excluded from the new government.
This is because while the SPD is not as far left as the commies, they still see themselves as Marxist. This is too much for Hindenburg and the autocratic or monarchist liberals under Brüning. Also, according to them, the SPD is to blame for the government collapse in March. But anyhow, here's what the president of the SPD, Paul Löbe, has to say.
We reject any form of dictatorship, no matter where it may come from. This is why we defend the Democratic Republic, to which our hearts, bodies, and souls belong. Therefore, Republicans of Berlin, we unanimously proclaim the Free German Republic. Frei, Heil, Frei, Heil, Frei, Heil.
So the SPD also sticks to its guns.
Yeah.
It is against dictatorship, whether it comes from the president, the Nazis, or the communists, and for democracy. All this puts the party in clear opposition to the course set by the Brüning government and President Hindenburg.
That is, wow, that's a lot to digest. And there will be no Weimar Wire political indicator this month, since currently there is no way to gauge any trends accurately. But next month, we'll have a definite answer, and we'll cover all trends in great deal in the Weimar Wire election report.
Until then, there are many questions on the minds of the German people. Who will win the election?
Who will lose it?
Will it lead to an end to the violence on the streets?
Will Brüning have a majority to govern parliamentarily again?
What will Hindenburg do if that's not the case? Just dissolve Parliament again?
We'll maybe get some answers when we return at the end of September 1930. To get us there, join the Time Ghost Army at timeghost.tv or patreon.com. It is the army that is responsible for all of this. Okay, until next time, Weimar Wire, signing off. Excelsior!